You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Wednesday, the 31st of July, 2013. Slough's thermal imaging spy plane reveals up to 6,000 beds in sheds. Crown Court forces rape victim to watch harrowing CCTV footage of attack. British women join jihad in Syria. Suriname wants Dutch compensation for slave trade. Immigrants threaten to harm children to get to Melilla. Fracking threat to Saudi Kingdom. Scientists discover what's killing the bees and it's worse than you thought. Thought for the day, 73 invasions of the UK, but nothing like that of modern times. And finally, pork chopped. UK news. Slough's thermal imaging spy plane reveals up to 6,000 beds in sheds. A spy plane equipped with a thermal imaging camera has found that more than 6,000 outbuildings in one town could be beds in sheds converted by rogue landlords. Slough Borough Council is the first local authority in the country to pay for the specially adapted aircraft to fly over streets picking up heat from sheds and garages. It spent £24,000 on flights to build up a precise 3D map of every building in the Berkshire town. The results mean thousands could be living there without planning permission or contributing council tax. The plane crisscrossed streets picking up heat signals from outbuildings which could signify they're being used as sheds with beds. Analysis of the images captured in the 2-hour night flight has now revealed a staggering 6,350 suspicious dwellings in the borough. Although many of the outbuildings are habitable, some are described as being unsafe, with little or no heating, or don't comply with building or fire safety regulations. Landlords face £200 fines and the prospect of their so-called beds in sheds being demolished if caught illegally renting them out. World at 8 says, who cares if they're habitable? They are illegal and should be pulled down and the inhabitants deported. They are all illegal as well. The so-called landlords should be deported for illegal activities and operating a slave system, or their houses taken away and huge fines taken. All of these unfortunate shed tenants are all on benefits of one sort or another or wouldn't be able to pay their so-called rent. A third world slum in the making in our country. An extended family of Filipinos erected a garden tent in the back of one of the smaller houses on my estate and several of them slept in that. Thank God they later moved on. Crown Court forces rape victim to watch harrowing CCTV footage of attack. The victim of a rape was forced to watch harrowing CCTV footage of the attack in front of a jury. The woman was made to relive her terrifying ordeal at the hands of Mohammed Azim, 31, at Wolverhampton Crown Court. Footage showed the moment Azim smashed her over the head with a bottle in a bus stop in Oldenbury, West Midlands, before dragging her into a nearby factory by her hair. She was then subjected to a 25-minute rape ordeal, which was all captured on the firm's CCTV security cameras. Azim, who was drunk and high on cocaine at the time of the attack in November last year, denied 3 charges of oral rape. His not guilty plea meant his victim, who cannot be named for legal reasons, was forced to watch back the video in court during Azim's trial, just so she could be properly cross-examined. Azim was found guilty of all charges on May the 28th and was jailed for a minimum of 16 years at Stafford Crown Court on Friday. World at 8 comments, this footage should have been shown to Azim's family, all of them, in court, and yup, deportation for all his family and him. Why should the British public pay for someone to eat and live whilst they've bitten the hand that feeds them? British women join the jihad in Syria. Channel 4 recently aired an exclusive story about British citizens who have travelled to join the fight to oust Syrian President Bashar al-Assad inside rebel-held territory in the country's north. The story followed a woman calling herself Mariam who travelled from Britain to marry a rebel fighter from one of the jihadist rebel groups. Mariam's marriage to her fighter husband Abu Bakr was arranged by his mother 3 months ago. She didn't meet him until after they were married. Until her recent departure from the UK for Syria, she lived what she described as an OK life. She and her husband are shown raising a child together and now expecting another. They say that their long-term objective is what they see as the liberation of Syria followed by the establishment of an Islamic caliphate. World at 8. I think you all know what I'm thinking here, so I won't repeat myself. I've seen the video and was almost sick with loathing. The description of British was just about the last straw. European news. Suriname wants Dutch compensation for slave trade. The former Dutch colony of Suriname has joined Caribbean nations to press for the compensation from the Netherlands, the UK and France for the lingering legacy of the Atlantic slave trade. CARICOM, a regional organisation for the Caribbean community, has taken up the cause and is preparing for a long, drawn-out battle with the country's governments. It has engaged British law firm Lee Day, which waged a successful fight for compensation for hundreds of Kenyans who were tortured by the British colonial government during the Mau Mau rebellion of the 1950s and 60s, the Guardian newspaper reports. CARICOM will target the Netherlands on behalf of Suriname, the UK on behalf of the English-speaking areas of the Caribbean and France on behalf of Haiti. According to CARICOM, the legacy of slavery includes widespread poverty and underdevelopment. St Vincent Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves told The Guardian any settlement should include a formal apology. Earlier this month, Social Affairs Minister Lodewijk Asscher stopped short of an apology when he expressed the government's deep regret for the Dutch slave trade. He was speaking at a ceremony to mark 150 years since the Netherlands banned slavery in its former colonies. World at 8 comments. They should seek compensation from Saudi Arabia and other Muslims in Africa who initially started the slave trade. Immigrants threaten to harm children to get to Melilla. Immigrants who stay in clandestine camps of Mount Gurgu, Morocco, in the hope of entering the autonomous city of Melilla have become extremely violent. This was stated by the government delegate in Melilla, Abdul Malik El-Barkani, based on reports made by the police and civil guard, explaining further that this change in behaviour is observed for immigrants for a year and a half. Today the gangs employ women and children with impunity in order to force emotional blackmail to the police. There have been cases of immigrants who pose as parents of the children and then abandon them when they achieve their goal of entering Spain. I think it's criminal behaviour employing children and impersonate their parents for these purposes, said the delegate of the government of Melilla, Abdul Malik El-Barkani. In the case of the boats, the threats are even more common and there are reasons to think that respond to previously designed plans. This week has seen 2 crew threaten to set fire to the skiff, occupied by women and children, as seen in a video released by the government office. It shows how a man holds a bottle filled with gasoline and lighter in his one hand, while the patrol gives him free passage. World news. Fracking threat to Saudi kingdom. As the fracking revolution eases demand for the kingdom's oil and gas, a billionaire prince warns his nation to find new income. The Saudi prince has warned that his oil-reliant nation is under threat because of fracking technology being developed elsewhere around the world. Billionaire Prince Al-Walid bin Talal said the Gulf Arab kingdom needed to reduce its reliance on crude oil and diversify its revenues. According to the Wall Street Journal, Saudi billionaire Prince bin Talal warned in a letter to Saudi oil minister Ali al-Naimi and others that the US boom of shale oil and gas will reduce its thirst for Saudi crude oil. The prince, who is worth an estimated $20 billion and founded Kingdom Holding, warned that the nation's near total reliance on oil revenues could leave it vulnerable when demand drops due to other nations' domestic production. World at 8 says they could always resort to slavery in Africa, which is what they did in the past before oil. Scientists discover what's killing the bees and it's worse than you thought. Quartz reports the mysterious mass die-off of honeybees that pollinate $30 billion worth of crops in the US has so decimated America's Apis mellifera population that one bad winter could leave fields fallow. Now a new study has pinpointed some of the probable causes of bee deaths, and the rather scary results show that averting Beemageddon will be much more difficult than previously thought. Scientists have struggled to find the trigger for so-called colony collapse disorder that has wiped out an estimated 10 million beehives worth $2 billion over the past 6 years. Suspects have included pesticides, disease-bearing parasites and poor nutrition. But in a first-of-its-kind study published today in the journal PLOS ONE, scientists at the University of Maryland and the US Department of Agriculture have identified a witch's brew of pesticides and fungicides contaminating pollen that bees collect to feed their hives. The findings break new ground on why a large number of bees are dying, though they do not identify the specific cause of CCD, where an entire beehive dies at once. World at 8 comments, as we reported in last week's news, pesticides are mainly to blame, and once the queen dies, the hive dies. Ergo, stop using pesticides on fields and flowers. Thought for the day: 73 invasions but nothing to equal that of modern times. According to the Telegraph, there have been 73 invasions since 1066 of this country, and of course they are all listed, but equally none of them add up to the fraction of the mighty invasion during the last 40 years from the Third World and lately the ghastly EU natives, which seems to be picking up a pace going into next year. This coming Friday we will not be having our usual Nick Griffin input because he's taking a well-deserved rest. So I shall be doing a fairly short talk on the EU and their immigration and other policies and how they affect us in the UK. But for now I'm concentrating on the peoples from the Third World and how, in a word, all these 73 invasions had very little impact on Great Britain nationally, or indeed were not really life-changing. Of course the Telegraph is going to relay various so-called invasions culminating in the Nazi occupation of the Channel Islands, which of course was the only real invasion, and that wasn't on the mainland. The rest are to quote since 1066. 1067, Atheling attacks West Country. 1060s to 1070s, Sweyn Eriksson invades the north and then East Anglia. 1208, Channel Islands seized by Eustace the Monk. 1216, French invasion of Kent, which sees their leader crowned. 1217, Eustace the Monk invades near Sandwich. The Hundred Years' War, 1338 to 39, attack on Harwich, Southampton, Plymouth, Jersey, Guernsey, Alderney and Sark. 1340, French raids along the south coast at these 6 landings. 1360, attacks on Sandwich, Rye, Hastings and Winchelsea. 1373, another French invasion of Jersey. 1376, attack on Rye. 1377, raids on Rye twice, Rottingdean, Portsmouth, Dartmouth, Plymouth, Isle of Wight, Winchelsea, Folkestone, Southampton and Poole. 1380, Winchelsea attacked again. 1386, Winchelsea attacked once more. There are also landings in Kent. 1415, Isle of Wight attacked. 1408 to 1415, raids on the Isle of Wight and 2 on Dartmouth by French privateers. 1418, Winchelsea raided once more. 1461, French invade Jersey. 2 other raids on Winchelsea during the war are referred to in the documents. The total of 42 for the 100 Years' War is attacks for which there is clear documentary evidence. 1487, Lambert Simnel, the pretender to the throne, landed in Lancashire backed by a foreign force. 1491, Perkin Warbeck, another pretender, lands in Ireland to gain support for his claim. 1495, Warbeck invades Kent. 1497, Warbeck invades Cornwall. 1545, Isle of Wight invaded by French in campaign, which also saw the loss of the Mary Rose. 1595, Cornwall invaded by the Spanish. 1601, Spanish landings at Cork. 1627, Barbary pirates land and occupy Lundy. 1620s, Barbary attacks around Conway. 1631, Barbary sackings off Baltimore, Ireland. 1636, Barbary raid on St Kevin, Cornwall. 1640, Barbary attacks on Penzance. 1667, Dutch landings in Sheerness and Felixstowe. 1688, William of Orange lands leading to the Glorious Revolution. 1690, French raid Teignmouth. 1719, Spanish land at Loch Ailsh. 1745, French-backed Jacobites landed. 1778, John Paul Jones raid on Whitehaven and Solway Firth. 1779, French raids on Channel Islands. 1796, French invade Fishguard. 1940, skirmish involving Germans at Graveney Marsh, Kent. 1940 to 1945, Nazi occupation of Channel Islands, total 73. I have now officially lost the will to live. But this list proves one thing, that all the small invasions are nothing compared to what has occurred over the last years to our country, and most of it legal and encouraged by our successive governments and the establishment, and also our churches. In fact, our churches, like our royalty, are so busy pandering to the so-called will of the people, they've forgotten who the people are or what they really need, alias their own country back. Looking at the awful figures of illegal and legal immigrants allowed in and staying in the UK, being housed, fed and watered, together with their descendants, makes the 73 invasions since 1066 look like a picnic in the park. Per capita, the UK is the most heavily populated country or island in Europe, and the southeast primarily is the most densely populated area of all, with mainly migrants from Asia and Africa and a plethora of developed sheds which the local councils totally ignore. Our educational system panders to the children of a foreign culture and religion, and woe to their staff if they stray from the Sharia path or the multicultural, multisexual mantras. Our social housing is the comical focal point of the world, who in truth don't house their own or anyone else's either, But of course we shove aside our own and go to the expense, under the guise of bringing jobs to the building industry, of putting up new shanty towns to accommodate even more migrants than are expected, get that, expected, to be put in social housing. Don't think for a minute the governments are thinking of yours and my tribes, they're not. We are dismissed as being too old and too few to count. All this loss of arable land is to house foreigners, my friends. A real invasion, to say the least. When it comes to the fact that Farage is taking up the cudgels for a dinner lady sacked because she gave a Muslim brat the meal she pointed out, which happened to be gammon, and very delicious it looked, then we know that immigration is going to feature just very slightly in the forthcoming EU elections and the general ones, on a scale of 5 on the 1 to 10 register. Farage, who has been fisted by the multicultural EU and paid for by the multicultural establishment, must find it very difficult indeed to get off his pedestal, and it's so firmly rooted within his body. You know when the Mail hails Theresa May as a saint that something is very wrong, and the powers that be are sensing that they have overstepped the mark of decency with the immigration facts, not necessarily the figures. When the ordinary man in the street is concerned about immigration, that is when our party, the British National Party, jump on the bandwagon according to the people in the know, although what they care to ignore is the fact that this bandwagon was started by us in the 70s and before that by the National Front. It was Labour bringing in the West Indians in the early 50s that started the anti-colour brigade, which of course no longer applies, as we see the results of that in certain areas of heavily mixed race people and gang wars and vast areas of deprivation, heartily and lately aided by African immigrants, making the mix a lot worse. On the programme titled The British, which although it brings certain good facts to the fore, it spoils it by bringing in people who are supposed to present the multicultural factor of Britain. But now of course, during the times this programme covers Britain, was not multicultural, although they place a very heavy emphasis on slavery and the fact there were 1,500 blacks in England in the 17th century, and of course Somerset, who won his case against being a slave in the UK, which of course didn't have slavery officially and still doesn't. But there are slaves over here even now. The commentators are hilarious. We have an Indian, an Anglo-Indian, a couple of Cockneys, a ghastly female so-called artist who looks like a tranny, a so-called comic who is always awful, and a very good actor who should have known better. The one glaring fact is that when Britain was great, we didn't have a multicultural society, and that is the reason why it was great. It wasn't reducing itself in favour of providing everything for foreigners who would give nothing back. I've just received the news that Doreen Lawrence, mother of St Stephen, is to become a Labour Party peer in the House of Lords. Well, all our ancestors would really crap themselves over this one. I frankly have never heard of anything so ridiculous as that. And the really odd thing is that if St Steve had been white, not a peership in sight, what about a peership for the mother of Jamie Bulger or the parents of many of the white victims of Muslim grooming? How about a peership for Mrs Downs, mother of Charlene? Why are we handing out titles to people who don't deserve them? Mrs Lawrence has paraded her dead son around like a money and publicity making millstone for nearly 20 years. She's been dining out on her son's death and will now make even more money out of it. This should, in the real world, wake people up to Labour and their lauding of ethnics to the detriment of Britain, both socially and economically. Will we ever learn? How many will demonstrate against this one? None. But we might write a lot of letters. My whole point is that multiculturalism didn't create work, money or a future for England. It destroyed it, or very nearly. It, like the Olympics, created an industry of hype and then it burst, leaving thousands of illegals in this country like leeches hanging on for grim death. The amount of illegal criminals is enormous and the mature students staying on beggars belief, and they're not staying on for our good or the good of their host country. So don't kid yourselves over that one. In short, we Brits and even the early migrants have good reason to be anti-ethnic, anti-Muslim and anti-EU. Very good reasons, and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. We are the far-seeing ones, the ones who care about the future of this country. We are not racist and we are not stupid. It is the people who don't care, who are anti-white and anti their own country, which is a worse form of racism known to man, that of not caring for your own. Alias, genocide. In the words of Trotter, come on Rodders, you know it makes sense. And finally, pork chopped. A school dinner lady has been sacked after accidentally serving pork to a Muslim pupil. Alison Waldock, 51, made the mistake when 7-year-old Khadija Dar pointed to a gammon dish on the lunch menu and Alison put it on her plate. The school's head teacher saw the youngster about to tuck into the meat, which Muslims are not allowed to eat, and raised the alarm in the dinner hall. And Alison, who had dished up meals for 11 years, was booted out after the school told the girl's parents, who complained to catering firm chiefs. Khadija's parents, Rumana and Zahid Dar, contacted bosses at Caterers Lunchtime UK after hearing of the error at Queen Edith Primary School in Cambridge. The firm then fired Alison for gross misconduct due to negligence, carelessness or idleness. But the mum of two said, "I feel the school and catering company made me a scapegoat, so they can't be seen as politically incorrect. I was really upset when I found out what I'd done. I've never done something like this on purpose, it was a simple mistake. I was so gutted with the school's reaction, I really enjoyed the job and never had any problems before." Alison was suspended while a probe took place, then axed a month later after an appeal. She said there were around 40 pupils with various dietary requirements and it was impossible to keep track of them with the documents she was given. She added, "I asked, do you want the gammon? And she said yes, so I served it to her. When the head teacher found out, she was not happy. But there are 200 odd children to feed and I don't know who is a Muslim or who is a vegetarian. There's a list, but the pupils don't wear name badges or stickers and we can't know them all. I respect all of the children's beliefs, religions and meal choices. This was just one mistake. I think firing me was really harsh." Khadija's parents claimed the school told them Alison wasn't concerned about the error. Rumana, 33, said, "The person there said the dinner lady didn't care or wasn't that bothered, but shocked Alison insisted that's just not true. If I saw the parents today I'd say sorry." Lunchtime UK Operations Director Peter McAleese said, "Anyone losing their job is regretful, but there's a full and transparent procedure and Alison went through, as well as an appeals procedure which she lost." A spokeswoman for Cambridgeshire County Council said the authority was not involved. But Inayat Buglawala, chair of moderate group Campaign Muslim for UK, blasted Alison's sacking. He said dismissing a dinner lady for inadvertently serving pig meat is an overreaction. The most sensible way to rectify such mistakes is to improve awareness of the pupils' dietary requirements while apologising to the pupils and their parents. UKIP leader Nigel Farage promised to take up Alison's case. He said, "I feel desperately sorry for her. If she'd served gammon to a vegetarian, would she have been fired? I think not." World at 8 states. Problem solved. Reduce the number of Muslim children in our schools or let them go to Muslim schools which are set up for them. Most of these parents come over here to have their children educated freely in our system, so tough at least they're getting fed for free. If they have to do in Rome as the Romans, either do it or get out. Our staff shouldn't be made to suffer for this so-called mistake. Let's face it, Jewish children sometimes eat pork if they're not overly religious. I feel that our culture is quickly being overtaken by the Muslim way and it's our own people doing it. We're like lemmings, all jumping off the white cliffs of Dover. You've been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozar and I wish you all a very good night.